Today on Context, the Aboriginal housing crisis and the road to reconciliation in Canada. Some of the issues we'll discuss today with former Deputy Grand Chief Kenny Blacksmith. I'm Lorna Duick, and you're watching Context, the show that looks at life beyond the headlines. A housing crisis in Attawapiskat First Nations left hundreds in tents, trailers, and deplorable living conditions during the cold winter months. After the chief declared a state of emergency, the federal government sent a third-party manager. This outraged community and Native leaders. Since 2006, Attawapiskat has been given $90 million. How many other reserves face a housing crisis? We'll also ask, how does this crisis affect the road to reconciliation among government and Native people? Let's put it in context. Well, today we want to address these questions, and to help us do that, we have Chief Kenny Blacksmith in studio. He's the former Deputy Grand Chief of the Cree Nation of Mistassini in Quebec. He and his wife Louise have battled and overcome their own personal housing crisis on the reserve. Chief Blacksmith recently lobbied all political parties for housing solutions. He's an ordained minister. Please welcome Kenny, everyone. It's great to have you here. Okay, the nation's eyes zoomed in on Attawapiskat. We couldn't believe that we had those kind of third world conditions in our nation. What did you think when you saw Chief Spence declare a state of emergency?
I think it needed to be done to be able to tell the story that was really happening, and not just in Attawapiskat, but all through Canada, especially in the northern Cree communities, all the Native communities, that this was really a problem.
I think we really need to do some bridge building with all of us as Canadians on helping us understand when $16 billion leaves the federal government to support Native housing, to Native life, period.
Native life. How
this happens. Native life, it's much bigger than housing, because 80% of federal funding goes to band councils for on-reserve spending, and what you're doing is creating a parallel system. You pay for all education costs per pupil, all health care costs per patient there, all roads and sewer, all social services. Do you think Canadians are too harsh on your people?
I think they don't understand the real cost of life in the north. And, you know, you take, for instance, Attawapiskat, that's the focus of the issues here. Our Prime Minister has stated that, $94 million was given to them for the last 5 years. Well, you take that over 5 years and you start to divide that amount per head or per member of the Attawapiskat community. What you really have in the end is roughly $10,000 per member for housing, for education, and for infrastructure and whatever services that most people take for granted.
Okay, and I get $10,000 per educational grant for any child going to school down south here. That's what our educational tax would be, that amount. But what I don't understand about creating this parallel system for Aboriginal people, there are 22 people on the government payroll, the band payroll, for a community of 2,000. Surely the band council system needs re-examination.
Well, there's obviously room for change for every band administration in the north. However, when you really think about the services, the community services, we also have to provide, accountability. Accountability is also being able to ensure their principals and their teachers, there's all those parallel services that are there so that we are adhering to the government policy and making sure the children do get an education the way it should be. But, living up north is so costly. We end up paying twice as much for a teacher's salary. We have to entice or do something to, make education attractive for southern teachers who are normally used to living in the south to be able to live in the north. So we provide them housing. We provide them different northern allowance that
and
most teachers don't get.
And tell us why the north will always be inhabited by your people. Some of us look at it and say, more of you should just move.
There's this tie to the land that is And you know, you can't describe it, what it really means. You know, for our people, they've always lived on the land. They've lived here for at least 15,000 years. We have a love. It's our way of life. We were born in a bush. We live in a bush. It's something that you just cannot ask our people just to up and leave because it's harsh or it's too costly. This is where we were born, and that's where we will die. And that's how our people look at the life on the land, even though it's hard. It's not easy just to up and leave a community. Look what happened to the Inuit. You know, when the Inuit were relocated from one particular area, it didn't go well, and so, you know, that's the same situation we're talking about.
I want to ask how you feel about donations coming from the south to the north. We have someone in the studio audience whose church collected gifts for Attawapiskat. Faustina, tell me how that went on collections and how you got them north.
Well, we were asked by an organization called True Aid North with Bill Pranker from Ottawa, and they approached our ministry and they said, would you be willing to be a depot where we could ask churches around the Toronto area to come and donate, not just winter stuff, but anything. We were beyond our eyes that we could imagine that people just donated generously. And we sent a truckload on December the 13th, and we sent another one on December the 15th.
Thank you. How do you feel about that? Truckloads going north.
Well, you know, obviously, I mean, there's a great need up there. I have mixed feelings, really, to be honest with you. And I think I can read our people's, perhaps their attitude at this point. They're thankful that they have the support that is being expressed. But I think we need to understand that we're not, I don't think Attawapiskat or any First Nation person or community wants to live forever on handouts. We want to live out a relationship with people where we are equal, mutual respect and recognition and acceptance of one another, that we are full partners in the shaping and in the economy of our nation. We can be living together side by side, and that has never really happened to our people. You know, so at this point, we do really appreciate the support and the role of the church in the north.
But it's a short-term solution to be receiving handouts. Okay, we're going to be back to talk about how you got out of one of the worst housing situations. Your wife is going to join us. But first we want to find out what you, our audience, think. Was it appropriate for the government to send a third-party manager to Attawapiskat? What's your view on that? Yes? No? Call us or email us. We're also at Facebook and Twitter at Context TV. You can be part of the conversation. We'd love to know what you think. Well, we'll have the studio audience's thoughts in a few moments on that. Coming up, how does the Aboriginal housing crisis affect the road to reconciliation? And how did Kenny and his wife Louise get their own home? That next.